Hi, and welcome to The Grand Balance, a weekly podcast hosted by two working grandmas navigating the beautiful chaos of work and family. Like the song says, the times are a-changin', and boy, have the times changed since we raised our kids. In today's episode, we will be discussing a lot of the changes that we have found along the way. Besides all the fancy new gadgets, I've been hearing terms like wake windows, feeding windows, sleep cues. Today we will discuss many of the changes since we had our kids.
Sharon, are we just making this too complicated?
There's so many different changes now. Some of it I can totally see, and some of them are so beneficial, and others I'm just wondering exactly what you said. Are we just throwing extra things in there?
You know, I actually had a conversation with my daughter about this the other day. I knew we were going to do this episode, and I wanted to hear from her perspective, you know, what has changed, what she thinks has changed. And one of the things that she reminded me was that they're raising their kids for today's time and tomorrow's time. And a lot has changed just in general in society and the amount of research that's out there now compared to when we were raising our kids.
Oh, and the technology has changed so much.
We didn't have any really back then.
Right, exactly. And just not only the technology available, but the influence of the technology.
Right, exactly. And so she said, well, we definitely know the basics. We've been through it. We have those life experiences. They're dealing with it in just a very different way than we are.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that actually is such a good point because they're doing their jobs. They're doing them to prepare their children for what they need to be prepared for.
Right. And even when we started out, I mean, we took those classes, you know, in addition to Lamaze, you know, those initial parenting classes to figure it out. And I know we were talking at lunch the other day with our good friend Kay, and she had said she had watched a TikTok video about how parent or grandparents need to be recertified to be a parent, you know, like 30, 35 years after they were a parent. And I thought it was really funny.
It's really funny, but honestly, it's really true because things have changed so much.
And I did research because I'm thinking, oh, that's hilarious. Why would we have to be recertified? But I was looking it up. They have classes all over town for grandparent recertification.
Oh, wow. I didn't know it was actually a thing.
It's a thing. There's the doulas, you know, who support the pregnant women. They have it just for grandparents. A lot of the hospitals in town have classes specifically for grandparents as well.
Oh, that's actually awesome.
Maybe we should go.
That would be fun. Let's do it.
And then we can report on it. Yeah,
Exactly.
And then we can report on it.
We can report back what these grandmother classes are teaching.
So through that conversation, it was funny because it kind of got a little tense in the room it wasn't like we weren't arguing or anything, but I could feel like the tension because one of the things my daughter said was the grandparents need to respect the decisions of the parents. We can't just say, oh, well, we did it this way and it worked fine. If our children or the parents of our grandchildren have another approach they want to take, or they want to raise their kids differently with different foods or different environments, we have to respect that. And I never really thought about it, but she kind of laid it out there for me. And it made me think back. I remember, I think my sister-in-law said she was so upset because my mom gave her child cake or something before her first birthday, and it upset her so much. And she was just talking about it recently, so it must have been a big deal, how the grandparents just have to respect what the parents are asking for. If it's no sweets, if it's no TV, if it's no being around the dogs alone, whatever the rules are, we have to respect them.
That's so true because we want to make sure that our kids are comfortable with us being around their kids so we can maximize the time we are able to spend with them. It's funny. One of my friends, Kim, is a current grandmother, and I asked her, what's your best advice about being a grandma? And she told me, the best advice I can give you is to zip it. And I said, what do you mean, zip it? And she said, you were like me. You're a helper, you're a nurturer, you're a fixer. You want to make sure everything's fine. And our kids don't want our advice. If they want our advice, they'll ask. And she said, so the best thing I've been doing is just zipping it and not offering advice unless it's asked for. And I said, you know, you're right. My natural inclination is to help, give all these suggestions. And so when my daughter got married, they got 2 dogs. And so I was practicing my zip it abilities with the crazy dogs. So when the dogs were acting crazy, I just sat there and thought, practicing on my zipping it, they can decide to raise their dogs however they want. And as funny as that sounds, it actually has helped me because I know that was one of the things I valued most about my mom. She didn't offer advice unless I asked, and she was very supportive, never inserted like, you're doing this wrong, you should do this. Unless I asked, she didn't say anything. So I've been really trying to follow that. And like I said, the practice with the dogs, I feel like has really paid off because I feel like, I'd have to ask my daughter, but I feel like I've been doing a good job of following their lead, following their different scheduling, different ideas, and doing things more focused the way they intend to raise their daughter.
Well, and I think you just coined a new term, zip-it-ability. So Sharon, you are demonstrating really strong zip-it-ability right now.
I've learned to zip it. Thanks, Kim.
I'm going to use that. Well, and one of the things for my daughter and son-in-law, they are very into healthy foods. And so she mentioned when we were having this discussion, she said, yeah, so in your time, she called it processed foods. I was a little taken aback by that because I'm thinking I wasn't feeding my baby processed foods, but I think it was more packaged foods. It was the little snacks, the little rice cake snacks that they could melt in their mouth, or the baby food jars. Like
Right.
we would go and buy baby food for the baby. And for me in particular, it wasn't that I didn't want my child to eat healthy. It was that I was a working mom and I didn't have time to be making homemade foods. What they do is they make them. There's all these little like ice cube trays or something like that they put the food in, and then they grind it up. So the baby has the meals for the week. They're all healthy eating, all of that, which is great. So I think there is much more focus on the health and nutrition and less focus on the convenience, which is 25 years ago, it was, I think, just a little more convenient to do that.
Well, again, I think too, there's just more information out there. But remember too, it wasn't as common back when we were with babies. Now they have all kinds of pouches you can put things in, all kinds of things that blend it, special cubes that they can use to make it. There's a lot more out there to making homemade food easier.
And the food that is, even today, even the packaged food or the pouches that you're talking about, even in the store, almost everything for babies now is organic. So I think if you need the convenience, you can still get it, but they're making it a little more healthy today. So I'm trying to follow the rules there, use the food that they give. Although one of the things that they agree with, which I'm so thankful, is you eat what the family eats. The baby eats what the family eats. So when we have our Thursday night dinners, assuming it is, healthy food, and it's something that the baby can eat because he still has allergies right now to certain things, that we just grind it up and puree it for him. So the other day we had chicken and potatoes, and that's pretty much all it was, maybe just a little bit of seasoning, but nothing too harsh. And he loved it. And they were very open to that because it's healthy food that, they are eating as well.
Well, it's whole foods. It's actual food.
Right, exactly.
So I think that's the difference. But yeah, there's been definitely a huge shift towards more nutritionally based foods for babies, concerns, and so forth. But like you said, I think it's much more available, whether it's more of a prepackaged thing or a make it yourself at home thing.
Right. And the one thing that I know we're going to be challenged with is the snacks, the sweets. It's something my daughter said she's really stressed about, that either myself or my husband is going to give my grandson sweets, and they don't really want to get him into that habit. And I know, we do it to be like, oh, let's come to grandma. We'll give you a cookie, or come to grandpa. He always has sweets treats ready and available. And it's cute and it's part of the bonding, but we have to respect the parents' wishes and not do that.
No, I agree. I do think it's important to respect the wishes. And that's a good discussion of how closely you follow that line. Because I know with my mom, I was very strict about how my kids ate when they were little with the organic, especially my first more so than my second. But my mom, when she had the kids, would kind of go rogue. And I wasn't happy about it, but at the same time, life goes on. And so then the discussion, I guess, is how strictly does this need to be adhered to and for how long? Is this something that is very important to our kids for the first couple years? Is this something that's extremely important to them throughout childhood? So I think that's an interesting discussion to kind of talk about as time goes on.
Right. And both my daughter and son-in-law, they love their sweets. We keep a whole jar of M&Ms at the house. We keep the cookie jar. And when they come over to visit, they go right in there. So I know it's not going to be a forever thing. But again, I don't want to create tension or a stressful environment when they're upset at us because we're not following their rules. But then at the same time, like you said, when do they let go and just say, it's not that big of a deal in the bigger scheme of things?
Right, especially once kids start school and they're going to birthday parties and to play dates and so forth. I think that's when things might ease up a little. But I think it all goes back to communication. We have to understand the expectation of our children and make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Yeah. And that full transparency. Like, let's not try to hide. Let's not say, when you're at grandma's, we do what we want and don't tell your mom and dad.
Oh, yeah. I would never. I won't be telling my grandkids to lie. That's for sure.
Yeah, no. Yeah. It's not our little secret. Don't ever get into that position. And I'm sure a lot of grandparents do that.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah. I know when I was younger, one thing that really upset my mother was my grandmother cut my bangs. She hated my bangs to be in my eyes. And she kept telling my mom, and my mom didn't do it or didn't share the same opinion. And so one day my grandma just did it, and it upset my mom so much. I don't think they talked for a while. I don't know. It was so stressful. And she still brings it up. So I think there are things that you just don't do. You suck it up. I think that's going to be the hardest part, that balance.
No, I agree. There's, again, balance. We all come back to balance, balance and communication. What about all the different changes with safety, with the car seats and the sleeping? I know one of the things I wasn't aware of with all the new sleeping rules is I remember with my kids, we bought the little foam wedge, triangle wedge thing, and you laid them on their side and stuck them in the middle of this little wedge to keep them. Everything's changed now. It's on their back with nothing in the crib or the bassinet. So I think a lot of the different safety things have changed. Have you noticed anything with that?
Yeah. And we used to have, with both my kids, we had the little, the bumpers around the crib, the cushion, because you're like, oh, you don't want their little head to hit the rail. So you'd put these bumpers and things. But now, yeah, it's pretty much nothing. And we had blankets too. Like at some point, you'd start putting blankets on the baby.
Now they're sleep sacks.
Exactly.
Who knew, right? I had no idea.
I know. So yeah, but there's more research. Like my daughter reminded me.
Oh, for sure.
A lot more that has been studied about things. So.
And those type of things, obviously, our children have looked into them, and anything like that, I will automatically respect because I figure they have looked into it way more than I have. And it's their kid, their opinion. The other thing that's different too, I noticed, is with the car seat. I would have my kids in the car for naps, and if they fell asleep, I would have them in the garage with a fan on them. And now they're not wanting the kids to be in car seats for extended periods of time. I noticed my daughter definitely will move the baby out of the car seat to put her into the bassinet, where I, God forbid, wouldn't touch the kid once they fell asleep because we're not risking any of that waking up in the nap business. So
exactly.
That's a new thing as well.
That just happened the other day. I was walking the baby. He was so tired. I think they said he woke up at 5 a.m. and I was walking him and he started to fall asleep. And I was like, oh no, don't go to sleep. Don't go to sleep. Because then I got to I got to transfer you. So I was running through the neighborhood trying to get him home so that he was just drowsy enough. So if I put him down, he would go down. And sure enough, I get him out. He had fallen asleep. I didn't run fast enough because I need more exercise. But I got him out. I took him upstairs, wide awake. And he was, I tell you, this was a hard day.
Oh, no. And he needed to go to sleep.
And then I took him to visit his great-grandmother. He was so cranky there. He was so tired. I get him in the car. He falls asleep instantly. And I get home, and I'm sitting in the car. My husband's looking at me like, why are you just sitting in the car? Because I didn't want to get out because the baby was sleeping. But then I was like, I thought of what you just said. Oh, shoot. They're going to want him to be in his bed. So I took him out of the car, and sure enough, he woke up, and he didn't get a nap. So while I understand the research, you don't want them up, you don't want their neck kinked. I was like, darn it, that was so effective.
I know. Yeah, that's one of the ways times have really changed because now they're saying they don't want them sleeping in loungers, swings, car seats, and I'm thinking, oh man, my kids spent a lot of time sleeping in car seats.
I know. So some of it, I don't know. I think you got to respect, but I'm like, oh, but it's so subjective. Do we really want to? Do we?
Well, and that's exactly right. Subjective. What's more important, to get a nap in or to have them on a straight surface? So, like, again, balance, I think, pretty much comes into play.
Then there's all these gadgets and toys and the safety around the toys that our kids all grew up with. The one, I know we used to have a big patio. We'd put the babies in a walker and it had the wheels on it. So as we're working out in the garden, they can just wheel themselves around our big patio. And we thought that was perfectly fine, but I don't think they even sell them with wheels anymore because of the danger. And so everything is more like stationary playstations that they can kind of bounce a little bit.
Right. I think even back then the research was starting to show, because I know I purposely didn't get one of those and got an Exerciser where they were stationary. Now I noticed with what my daughter told me is the new ones have a platform that meets up with their feet that's adjustable. So it's even more supportive, I guess. But yeah, that was a big change for sure.
Yeah, we have one of those and it adjusts. So as the baby gets older, you move that little platform down. And it's very flexible, so it's not too hard as they're bouncing. So yeah, I guess, research definitely has shown that. The other thing that my kids loved was the Jolly Jumpers.
Oh, that's funny. So I was a no on that one too.
Really?
I must have been the overly cautious, crazy mom.
Maybe.
We didn't do the jumper.
And so I got one because the baby was in this time, a period of time where he was just jumping. We're like, oh, we need to get him a Jolly Jumper.
Oh.
And so I got one and they never wanted to put it up. But I asked, I says, well, if you're not going to use it, I get it. It's your decision. I'll send it back.
You bought one for the baby?
I bought one. And they said, no, maybe we're thinking about it. They never used it. So too late to send it back, but it's their decision. I get it.
Don't send it over with me.
I'm not going to send it to you, clearly. But what's funny is there's still so many ratings of parents that love to have their kids in the Jolly Jumper. So
I didn't even know they still sold them.
The original. And
wow.
The original is the highest rated because it's more sturdy and has more safety and all that kind of stuff. But I guess there's still millions and millions of parents that are putting their kids at risk. Or grandparents like me who was willing to do that. So I guess it's a no on the Jolly Jumper in our family.
It's definitely a no in our family too, but
yeah,
everyone can have their own opinions. Remember the old days where you just threw them in the car seat and buckled it in? Now it's quite an ordeal. Those car seats are like accident proof for sure.
Oh, yes, definitely.
The adjustments and the straps and the pulling it tight. And
so when I first put it in my car, it wasn't tight enough. And my son-in-law says, yeah, you really have to like get your body in there and pull this strap. He says, I like straddle it so hard. And he's a very fit, manly man. Like he's got a lot of muscle and I'm, this little tiny thing trying to get this thing to be tight. And I tried and I I said, okay, can you check my work? Because I don't know if I did a good enough job.
We had a very similar situation with the car seat. Strapping her in as tightly as possible. But boy, those kids are secure. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I remember every time I do it, my daughter would kind of come over and go, okay, bye, baby. And I'd see her sneakily like testing the straps to make sure they were
My
tight
daughter
enough.
doesn't even do it sneakily. She just checks it and makes sure if it's in my car.
That's funny.
That's funny. Has there been any other gadgets that you found that have been super helpful or a complete waste?
So at first, they have one of those bottle warmers,
Oh.
which I thought, what a great idea.
I love the bottle warmer.
Okay. So we don't have one at the house here. So when they're here once a week with the baby, we don't have one of those. So I just keep a teapot of water and I set it to boil. I put the bottle in for just a couple minutes and it's nice and warm. So I've tested it. It's actually more time efficient to do it that way than to wait for this bottle warmer. So
Okay, but
that's
you know
like
what?
I don't know. That's a maybe if you have some money, spend on it. But is it really necessary? Probably not. There's many different ways to do it.
I'll tell you what I loved about the bottle warmer is it's somewhat of an exact science. So you put the bottle in, you go about your business, you can change the baby, you can move around, and then when you come back, it's perfectly set at the right temperature.
That's true. It
I
just
like
does
that.
take time. So it takes a little more time. So if you are not impatient like me, then it's probably
Yeah, I
perfectly
love
fine.
it. Between the bottle warmer and all the new sterilizers, those are right up my alley. Throw everything in, everything gets sterilized. I also love all the new, like my daughter has this cactus thing. I'd never heard of it, but it has a variety of different shaped brushes that like you set into this cactus type of holder. And like the little one, a lot of it's to clean out the pump. And some of it's for bottles and nipples, and it has all different size of brushes. And I thought that was pretty ingenious, and it was super inexpensive.
Yeah. No, that is. My kids don't have that, so that sounds like a
Look
good
up the
little gift.
the cactus brush.
The cactus brush. Okay, that could be one of your fabulous finds.
That could be, but I have a different one. Okay, today my fabulous find is something I had not heard of that many other grandmothers and friends of my daughter that are new moms told me about, and it's a Snuggle Me. And it's a simple little idea. It's a pillow that has a concave middle, and so when the babies are very young before they're mobile, you can set them in there. I'm assuming it's a good position for their spine and all the things we worry about, but it's a comfy little place to set them down where I think they feel secure because of the way it surrounds them. And it has a washable cover. You can move it from room to room. I just found it to be very helpful. We have one at my house and my daughter has one at her house. You can change the baby in it. I just found it to be a helpful little addition. Did you guys use that?
I don't think so. So you can actually set the baby in that, and I don't know, maybe go to the bathroom, get a bathroom break in once in a while you're doing
When
it,
they're
or
not mobile, for sure.
when they're not mobile. Yeah,
I think part of it is just it's comforting for the baby because they feel like they're being held because of the way it's structured with the pillows. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's called a Snuggle Me. I know it's made with organic materials, and both of us have used it a lot. One of my friends, Terry, had given me one to use that her daughter no longer used, and I've used it extensively.
So how sad is this? My grandson now is 9.5 months. Time has just flown by, but I can't even remember some of the things we were doing when he was first born. So maybe he did have one, and I just don't remember.
That's funny. Yeah, I just our little granddaughter is just now flipping all over the place. So now I will only put her in it to change her where I'm standing right there holding on to her because it's definitely a short period of time you can use it, but it's one of those things we used a lot. So I found it very helpful.
Very good. So talking about safety, we have stairs in my house and it stresses me out. And right now the grandson is going so fast up the stairs, crawling up the stairs. So I have to have my eye on him constantly. Like within 2 seconds, he could hit those stairs.
Have you thought about putting a gate up?
Well, I have a gate.
Okay.
But at the same time, I want him to learn how to navigate the stairs and how to do it safely. So I'm always standing behind him. I'm of the position I'm encouraging him to learn how to go up. I just have to figure out when's the right time to teach him how to go down safely. Because if I just keep the gate there all the time, then I worry he's not going to learn how to do it and he's going to fall.
Right. And I do remember teaching my kids to go down on their stomach and turn, but I don't remember exactly what age it was. I too have a 2-story, and my daughter and son-in-law have a 1-story. So they're not faced with the stair issue. Do your daughter?
Yeah, they have a 1-story
Okay.
as well. But they're here on Thursdays, so they see it.
Right.
And we're all encouraging it because we want him to
Right.
figure
Know
it
what to
out.
do.
But there's that balance. Like, do you put the gate up all the time, and then when you're ready to watch him do it, we need to figure it out. I do have the gate. I just haven't put it up because I'm always with him anyway. So right now it's okay. But I think at some point, we hope we have our eye on them at all times. But at some point, you have to turn around or go pick something up, and then boom, he's at the stairs.
Right. Yeah, I've been wondering what I'm going to do about that too. I last had a gate on there when I had a puppy. So, and I remember teaching the puppy how to go up and down the stairs. So maybe it's the same idea.
That's the gate I borrowed from my dad.
Oh, the puppy gate?
So I'm going to use it for that.
Yeah, I have a weird stairwell that's really wide, so I've got to figure out what I'm going to do about that.
Yeah. As we think about working grandmas, we were also working moms. And I think the struggle for balance between work and parenting has always been an issue, especially for moms. But I think things have changed a little for the better in that regard. I had mentioned on a previous podcast, I think it was the one about friendships, that I had a colleague who had hired me and said I could work from home. And that was over 25 years ago. And that was unheard of at the time. And I do remember my son, when I was working from home, my son was in his crib, but he was of that age where he was starting to climb and things like that. So I put him down for a nap and I got on a call. It was with the CEO of a hospital. And I'm having this conversation and I hear the baby crying. I'm like, shoot, I got to finish this call. And so I go into the other room where it's much more quiet. And I try to finish this call and I hear my son, he climbed out of his crib and he's walking around the house calling for me. Mommy, where are you? Or I don't know if he was saying the words, but he was crying for me. And so I climbed into a closet, shut the closet door, and tried to be as quiet as possible to finish this conversation. Because if this male CEO heard that I was home with the baby, it could have impacted my job significantly. Like there wasn't the acceptance that there is now.
There's definitely a lot more acceptance now.
And I don't know if it's COVID. I don't know if it's just that the working from home environment is more widespread. But now if you hear baby crying in the background or, anything like that, it's not a big deal.
You know what I think has helped the acceptance is I just think dads are so much more involved now. I have been so impressed with my son-in-law. From the minute the baby was born, they do the skin on skin with the dads now. And the dads are so hands-on and involved with the everyday responsibilities. It's not just left to the mom to figure it out, which I think was more accepted in our time. The dads are team players, and it's really amazing to me. And that probably translates to different people in power, what males or females, realizing people do have families, and it's something that exists in most people's lives. And I think it's a juggling act. You have men working from home, women working from home. If the mom's in a meeting, dad can take the baby for a bit and vice versa. I think it's sometimes tag team effort. I think people do what they have to do, but I think because men are so much more involved in the day-to-day responsibilities, it probably has done somewhat of hopefully a mind shift.
Yeah. I think you're right. And it's really nice to see. I think out of all of the changes that we've talked about today, I mean, some are actually very necessary. I think this one excites me the most, that there is that acceptance that we all are raising the family. It takes a village to raise the family, and the equality that we're seeing between men and women and their participation in raising those children.
Right. And it doesn't just fall on the woman.
Yeah. In regards to equality, I wanted to call out one thing. You know, I try to do an inspirational grandma during these podcasts. And today I want to actually talk about all the inspirational females that are athletes. We are finishing up the Olympics, and this year, 2024, is the first year that we have true equality in the Olympics, where 50% participating are men and 50% are women. So congratulations to all of those female participants, and for the women out there who have tried so hard over the years for that equality. It only took us 128 years, but we're here.
But we're here. Yay. It's so amazing. And I love the Olympics, and I love seeing that, because what an amazing accomplishment these women have done to get to where they are.
Well, that wraps up today's episode. Stay tuned, and in the next few weeks, we will be starting our interviews of some amazing grandmothers, working grandmothers.
So excited about the upcoming interviews.
We're only first-time grandmothers, so we're going to be talking to those that have more than one grandkid, some that don't get to spend as much time with their grandkids because they might not live in the same town. So a lot to learn from these inspirational women. Well, thanks everybody. Stay tuned for our next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to the podcast so we can continue to grow our community. Also follow us on Instagram at Working Grandmas Podcast, on Facebook at The Grand Balance, a Working Grandmas Podcast, and join our LinkedIn group, Working Grandmas. You can also email us at info@workinggrandmas.com or message us through any of our social media platforms.